Front and Center. Front and Center. A focus on important and significant developments affecting the lives of Filipinos, not only in the Philippines, but also those living and working around the world. Join us in Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Good day, welcome to Front and Center, where we focus on developments in the Philippines, legislation that provides policies and directions that strives to promote a better economy for the country, issues that concern the welfare and well-being of every Filipino. All of these and more will be Front and Center. You can watch this program live on our Facebook page, that's Radyo Pilipinas World Service. You can also hear us live on audio streaming at Evox PBS Receiver app. So join us for another edition of Front and Center with your host, Jerome Toledo.
Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Today, Fitch Ratings has retained the Philippines' long-term foreign currency issuer default rating at BBB, with a stable outlook, citing the country's success in taming inflation and robust medium-term growth potential. In a report, Fitch Ratings said the same BBB rating and stable outlook reflect the Philippines' strong medium-term growth, which supports a gradual reduction in government debt and the large size of the economy relative to BBB peers. And to know more about this rating and how will this affect to ordinary Filipinos here and abroad, joining me now is the Assistant Secretary of the Office of the Chief Economist of the Department of Finance. And also, he was a former alternate executive director of the EDS 15 constituency at the World Bank Group, Assistant Secretary Dr. Neil Adrian Cabiles. Thank you, Assistant Secretary Cabiles. Welcome to the program Front and Center on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Yes, hi, good morning, and thank you for having us today.
Okay, so Fitch Ratings is out yesterday, and we got a good credit rating from the said credit rating agency, so which is the triple B. So what does this signify, ASEC Cabiles?
Well, yeah, triple B is actually, the very first level that you have, or the entry level that you have for investment grade. An investment grade rating of triple B for Fitch means that the Philippines is of low credit quality in terms of it's of good credit quality in terms of its debt and has moderate risk of default. So that's basically what your triple B credit rating is, that you are actually of a good credit rating and you're worth investing in. But what I actually find more important in the most recent release of Fitch is that the BBB rating comes with a stable outlook. And it's the stable outlook that is very important, that I find very important or interesting. It's because in the current dealings in the recent discussions that we have with credit ratings agencies, as well as our credit advisors, most of the scenario that's being encountered right now is that due to the the uncertainty in the global markets, there's a likelihood that a good number of economies might actually be downgraded. So the fact that we are on a stable outlook, which means that we are in a quite good position, that you would keep our trajectory, matters a lot in terms of the recent release from Fitch.
Oh, okay. Okay, in the report, ASEC Cabiles, so a triple B rating, which is above the minimum investment grade, that indicates a low expectation of default risk with the country's capacity to meet financial commitments deemed adequate. So how do we ensure that the country are efficiently meeting financial commitments with global financial units?
Well, we of course have embarked on a fiscal consolidation path, particularly on the medium-term fiscal framework that we have, which is we intend to contain our deficit, we intend to lower our debt levels, coming from a high from the pre-pandemic, and that we continue to spend efficiently and wisely. So these measures would
Mm-hmm.
help us ensure that we could actually very well stick to our financial commitments. Over and above that, of course, we have our continued drive to improve our revenue collections through better tax and customs administration, as well as the number of tax measures that we have recently passed, and that we note, as pointed out, that these tax measures that we have undertaken
Mm-hmm.
are already sufficient enough for us to meet our financial obligations, and therefore no new tax measures are actually necessary.
Okay, but since the government continuously borrowing money from different sources, either local or abroad, would that affect the credit rating in the next future, and in the near future, Asek Kabiles?
In terms of the credit rating, what's actually which actually mostly that is taken a look at is the capacity for you to pay for your debt.
Mm.
So, a common misconception that we have is that if you have an increasing debt and therefore it already translates into a bad credit rating, not necessarily is the case. You
Mm.
can actually have a good credit rating, even if your debt is increasing, as long as you have clearly have this commitment
Mm. Mhm.
of being able to meet your obligations, and that you
Obligations.
have actually maintained a good capacity to
Mm-hmm.
pay. So that's how it is.
Mm.
Nonetheless, we have to take note that uh, we champion a very prudent fiscal management, and that's
Mm.
why we would actually want to contain our debt, and that we'll only borrow only for the really necessary and the necessary financing that we need to do.
Mhm. So apart from borrowing, so we are at the same time meeting obligations by paying on time to our creditors. So that makes sense as a Kabilas that we are getting this rating from the Fitch ratings.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So how or in what way can ordinary Filipinos feel the benefits of this good credit rating as a Kabilas?
Yes, first and foremost, a good credit rating translates to a lower cost of borrowing for the government.
Mm.
So a lower cost of borrowing for the government therefore allows it to have to be able to access resources at a low cost for it to
Mm-hmm.
be able to roll out its priority development projects. A good credit rating also boosts investor confidence, and so
Mm.
therefore it encourages more investments here in the Philippines,
Mm-hmm.
which of course translates to more job and livelihoods.
I see. Okay. And also at the same time, ASEC Kabiles, Fitch Ratings commended the government's success in controlling inflation rate. Last month, we had a 1.8% inflation rate. However, Metro Pacific Investments Corporation Chairman Manny B. Pangilinan said that this year's economy will be a tough year. He cited the downgraded growth forecast from the Asian Development Bank and also the World Bank. While the chairman of the Ayala Corporation, which is Jaime Augusto Zobel de Ayala, meanwhile expressed confidence that the Philippine economy will be able to weather the market volatility given that we are facing this tariff issue from the Trump administration. So, what's your take on that, Asek Kabiles?
Well, the uncertainties in the global markets
Uh-huh.
always translate to a tough year for all economies, not just for the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to take note that the Philippines is in a very good position right
Mm-hmm.
now, in spite of this global economic headwinds. First and foremost, the easing inflation, and also therefore the space of the space that the central bank has gained
Mm-hmm.
out of the easing inflation for more easy monetary policy stance would actually provide space for household consumption and private consumption to increase,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore support your GDP growth. Also, we have to take note that we have a very good and healthy labor market,
Mm-hmm.
and that we have a labor force which wherein most of the employed are your wage and salaried workers. And therefore, this should actually allow us to have a very strong domestic market that would support us or tide us by the global economic headwinds. Also, we have to take note that the Philippines is still in a relatively good position, coming into the tariffs that have been imposed by the United States. We have the second lowest tariff rate in the region, which therefore means that we could take advantage of the trade diversionary effects, particularly on the sectors of garments, for example, and some agricultural products, as well as on electronics.
Okay. All right. So, in short, our economy is very insulated and at the same time prepared for this economic global challenges that we are facing, right, Asa Kabilas?
What we could say is that we are in a position to be able to weather the challenges that would come, given the situation that we have right now.
Okay, okay. All right, so moving on to another topic, Asa Kabila. So the Marcos administration aims to achieve upper middle income status by 2026. However, the World Bank says otherwise. The scenario is that it will take a couple of years, and it won't be next year, and it's more likely to be achieved by 2027. So my question, Asa Kabila, so is the 2026 target of the Marcos administration workable and feasible?
Well, we haven't still revised our targets owing
Uh-huh.
to the fact that we are optimistic that we will be able to still hit our growth target, at least in the low end of 6%. Again, coming from a healthy labor force, a strong domestic economy, and let's say a relatively comfortable position compared to that of our regional partners as far as the tariffs that we are seeing now goes, should ever they be implemented. So given this, we could consider that the um, the achieving UMIC by 2026 might still be possible, but we have to take note also what the statement of NEDA was, in relation to this, coming from the news that you have yesterday. Number one is that the achieving UMIC status is always a work in progress, and that the 2026 projection that we have is actually based on that, that you don't have disturbances in your global economy, that trade would actually be would actually be good. But as we could see right now, there's that prospect of challenge whether this assumption would hold true. So as of now, what we could say is that it is achievable, but there might be certain, let's say, downside risks to achieving that.
Okay, so in short, Asa Kabilas, the government is still working on it to achieve this status.
Yes, we always remain committed to improve growth, and also to reach a good level of income and a good standard of living for our Filipinos.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I'm down to my last question, Asa Kabila. So, the Marcos Jr. administration recently signed the Executive Order number 86, authorizing the Department of Foreign Affairs to issue digital nomad visa for foreign digital nomads. So, of course, that will involve influx of money from our from foreigners that wishes to remotely work here in the country. So, how can the Philippines capitalize on this influx of foreign digital nomads?
Well, that measure, first and foremost, actually places the Philippines in a competitive position with the rest of our neighbors, because similar arrangements have already been adopted by some of our neighbors. Now, we could very much take advantage of this by, of course, first improving our digital infrastructure. we have to take note that I mean, most this policy hinges on that it would improve our tourism industry. It would help our tourism industry, and so therefore, most we expect our digital nomads not to just come to the highly urbanized cities that have a very good, let's say, digital infrastructure already, but also to those areas wherein, I mean, it might not be in highly urbanized cities, but these are areas that are tourism hubs. And so therefore you have to improve the digital connectivity there for the digital nomads to take advantage of this arrangement. And of course, improvements as well in the infrastructure and the services that they might need while they'll be staying here in the Philippines.
Okay. And I would like to ask this. Do you have a rough or estimate data of how much invests or how much the influx of money that may enter into our Philippine economy once this digital nomad visa policy will take effect? Asa Cabiles.
In terms of the projected inflow that we have, I would say that it's actually too early to tell right now to do the simulations. As you know, I mean, the digital nomad industry is something that you are not able to easily capture it. So this we have to study how we would be able to actually pinpoint the receipts coming out of this one.
Okay. All right. And with that, thank you so much for joining us in the program, Asa Cabiles, for sharing your thoughts regarding the Fitch rating issue, as well as the Philippines becoming an upper middle income country, and at the same time, the digital nomad visa policy of the government. So thank you, Asa Cabiles of the Department of Finance, for joining us in the program.
Thank you very much and have a good day.
And Front and Center will be right back after these messages.
Pagsaludo sa lahat ng manggagawang Pilipino. Kahit anong init ng panahon, mas mainit pa rin ang kanilang dedikasyon. Pagod ay di iniinda, maitaguyod lang ang pamilya. Anumang hamon ang kaharapin sa trabaho, tiyak di aatras at di papatalo. Kaya naman, deserve nyo ang recognition para sa inyong hard work at drive for progress. Hangad namin ang inyong tagumpay. Pagpupugay ngayong araw ng mga manggagawa mula sa Presidential Broadcast Service at Radyo Pilipinas, Radyo Publiko, 738.
Hatol ng Bayan. Election Quick Facts.
National and local positions. Sa darating na May 12, 2025 midterm elections, ang bawat botanteng Pilipino ay pipili ng mga bagong leaders para sa national and local positions, kabilang ang 12 senators, members of the House of Representatives, at party list representatives, at local government officials gaya ng governor, mayor, board members, at councilors. Kasabay nito ay idiraos rin ang kauna-unahang Bangsamoro Parliament elections, kung saan 25 members of the Parliament at 40 party representatives ang ihahalal ng ating mga kapatid sa BARMM.
Hatol ng Bayan. Election Quick Facts. Binigyang pagkilala ni Pangulong Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. ang mga sakripisyo ng overseas Filipino workers sa pamamagitan ng pagdaraos ng konsyerto sa palasyo na handog para sa ating mga bagong bayani.
Sa bawat bansang aking napupunta, laging may banyagang nagsasabi na ang kagaling ng mga Pinoy. At tuwing naririnig ko yan, talagang tumatama ang puso ko. That makes me truly proud to be a Filipino because of how well you have represented us beyond our shores. You're serving with passionate hearts and genuine smiles.
Lubos na pasasalamat ang ipinarating ng Pangulo sa lahat ng Pilipinong nagtatrabaho sa ibang bansa para sa kanilang dedikasyon at pagmamahal sa bayan.
Makakaasa kayo na laging nandito ang pamahalaan upang protektahan, alagaan at itaguyod ang kapakanan ninyo at ng mga pamilya ninyo.
Para sa iba pang mga balita at impormasyon, manatiling nakatuto. Tapat sa pag-uulat. Radyo Pilipinas, Radyo Publiko, 738.
Huy, nabiktima ka na ba ng fake news sa panahon ng digital media? Learn how to spot fake news. Check the source. Kung di legit, dapat magduda. Check the purpose. Informative or troll post at clickbait lang. Check the ownership. Mapagkakatiwalaan ba ang pinagkukuhanan nito? Check the time and date. Baka naman outdated na yung news na yan, ha? SPOT. Together, let's spot fake news. Tiyakin ang katotohanan, fake news ay labanan.
A friendly message from PCO, DepEd, CHED, DSWD, DILG, PBS at Radyo Pilipinas.
Front and center. Front and center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Welcome back to Front and Center. The investment approvals surged by 112% to 63.5 billion pesos from 29.96 billion pesos. And that's according to the Philippine Economic Zone Authority, or PEZA. And the PEZA reported that its board approved an additional 20 new and expansion projects worth 4.58 billion pesos for this month alone. 7 of the newly approved projects are in the export manufacturing sector, 5 in the information technology and business process management or IT BPM, 5 facilities, 2 utilities, and 1 each for logistics and domestic market. Top foreign investment sources of the Investment Promotion Agency or IPA in the first 4 months of the year include South Korea with 10.45 billion pesos of investments, the United States with 2.53 billion pesos, China with 2.17 billion pesos, Japan with 1.66 billion pesos, Hong Kong with 1.14 billion pesos, and Singapore with 1.1 billion pesos. With the new approvals this month, total project registration in PEZA from January to April this year reached 86 new and expansion projects that would create more than 20,000 fresh jobs. PEZA Director General Tereso Panga said that the continued upward trajectory reflects the strong commitment towards investment promotion and facilitation and renewed investor confidence in the Philippines as a resilient and globally competitive destination despite the geopolitical challenges. PEZA added that attracting investments from Asian neighbors into the ecozones reflects the benefits of the Bilateral Free Trade Agreement or FTA with South Korea and the emerging China Plus 2 strategy.
Front and center. Front and center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Still talking about the economy, the Philippine digital economy has reached 2.25 trillion pesos at current prices in 2024, accounting for 8.5% to the country's gross domestic product. That's according to the data from Philippine Statistics Authority. And this represents a 7.6% increase from the 2.09 trillion peso gross value added recorded in 2023. The digital economy, as defined by the PSA, encompasses digital transactions under 4 key components. First is digital enabling infrastructure. Second is digital content and media. Third is e-commerce. And fourth, the government digital services. And among these components, digital enabling infrastructure contributed the largest share at 1.88 trillion pesos. And the top 3 industries under this component were professional and business support services, telecommunication services, and ICT manufacturing industries. And the other components contributed as follows: the e-commerce and the digital content and media and government digital services. And in terms of employment, the digital economy engaged 11.30 million workers in 2024, up by 4.8% from 10.78 million in 2023. The sector's share to the total national employment stood at 23.1%.
Front and center. Front and center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
More stories coming your way when Front and Center returns.
Binigyang pagkilala ni Pangulong Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. ang mga sakripisyo ng overseas Filipino workers sa pamamagitan ng pagdaraos ng konsyerto sa palasyo na handog para sa ating mga bagong bayani.
Sa bawat bansa ang aking napupunta, laging may banyagang nagsasabi na ang gagaling ng mga Pinoy. At tuwing naririnig ko yan, talagang tumatama ang puso ko. That makes me truly proud to be a Filipino because of how well you have represented us beyond our shores. You're serving with passionate hearts and genuine smiles.
Lubos na pasasalamat ang ipinarating ng Pangulo sa lahat ng Pilipinong nagtatrabaho sa ibang bansa para sa kanilang dedikasyon at pagmamahal sa bayan.
Makakaasa kayo na laging nandito ang pamahalaan upang protektahan, alagaan at itaguyod ang kapakanan ninyo at ng mga pamilya ninyo.
Para sa iba pang mga balita at impormasyon, manatiling nakatuto. Tapat sa pag-uulat. Radyo Pilipinas, Radyo Publiko, 738.
Front and center. Front and center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Welcome back to Front and Center. Later today, the Philippines and New Zealand are set to sign an agreement that would enable a close military coordination between the two nations. New Zealand Defense Minister Judith Collins is in the Philippines to sign the Status of Visiting Forces Agreement to be witnessed by no less than President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. and Department of National Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro Jr. at Malacanang Palace. The SOVFA is a treaty-level document that includes military cooperation conditions such as legal responsibilities and obligations on both sides, formally setting the legal framework for engagement between our respective militaries, better facilitating ongoing cooperation, activities, and exercises in each of the territories. The agreement will undergo a final ratification process in the Philippine Senate.
Front and center. Front and center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
And with that concludes this edition of Front and Center. Together with Radyo Pilipinas World Service production team and technical personnel, this is your host, Jerome Toledo. Until next time, mabuhay, love the Philippines.
You have just heard and watched Front and Center. Front and Center. Join us again for another edition here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Front and Center.